became strangers. They were a race as old as time itself. They had mastered the ultimate technology. The ability to alter physical reality.
Welcome to Frisky Talk 002 with our special guest, John Graham, aka Quivver, an absolute legend in the industry. John's name is on some of the biggest and best tracks of the progressive golden era, and he continues to influence the scene today with his huge tracks and his deep, dark DJ sets. I had such a great time talking to him about the good old days, whether progressive is making a comeback, and what to look forward to from him next. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this special episode of Frisky Talk 002 with Quivver.
Feeling frisky?
I'd love to start from the beginning. We go back to when you first started. There's so much to go on from there, but how did you first get in? Didn't you start out like with jungle? And
yeah I started going to a place in Coventry where I grew up, which was the first legal all-night club in the UK at the time. They weren't allowed to serve alcohol, but they were allowed to stay open till like 8 a.m. So I went there a couple of times, and the second or third time, everything changed. I just decided that's what I wanted to do for one reason or another. And I was making music. I was in a band and stuff like that. But I decided to buy a sampler and saved up some money and quit my job. Bought a sampler, bought some speakers and a DAT machine, which is what people used to record on in those days, and made a white label vinyl of like a jungle pre-drum and bass kind of track, and pressed up 500 copies and drove around London and Manchester and Birmingham to all the underground record stores, selling them out the back of my car.
Wow, that's amazing. That's like ballsy of you to just
yeah. And then the second one got picked up by a little underground label in London. And so I ended up doing about 10 releases,
oh, wow.
10 EPs as Scanner. And then I teamed up with an old friend of mine from college called Neil Barry, and we made the first couple of Quivver things.
Oh, together?
Yeah. Quivver was originally two people. It was a band name. We wanted to be called Shiver at first. We wanted to be called Scope, but that was already taken. And then we wanted to be called Shiver, but there was somebody called Shiva who was signed to Deconstruction, so that was too close. So Quivver was like the third best.
And that's the one that stuck out of all. The monikers.
The first thing got picked up by. We mailed out like 20 white labels to big DJs, and I think it was either John Digweed or Paul Oakenfold played it, and there was a guy there from AM/PM at Ministry of Sound, and he asked John or Paul, one of the two, what this white label was, and then the next day he called me and said, I heard your record last night, do you want to sign it to AM/PM? And so we both did a somersault and said, yeah, we'll come down and meet you.
Oh, that's awesome. I love how in that time, how different it was that you would have to actually go out and like have this record made, and he had to go find you down, and seek you out. And that's awesome. It's so different. Is that how you started with Oakenfold? Was him hearing your record?
I honestly can't remember who it was. It was either Paul or John. But anyway, the first deal we did, the first Quivver release, and the second one came out on AM/PM, and then for one reason or another we split. And Neil was good enough to let me keep the name And somebody asked me to do a remix just after we decided to split. So I asked him if he was cool with me using the name for this remix. And the remix never actually got released. The band got dropped before the single came out. And then the next thing I made, I sent it to Perfecto, and they picked it up. And then we did a few releases on Perfecto. Yeah, and then Perfecto left EastWest, and then I moved to VC, Virgin, and kind of drifted around from label to label after that, really.
When did it start with that you joined Tilt?
Tilt happened almost at the same time as the Perfecto. When I signed Believe in Me, we also did because Parks and Wilson, the other members of Tilt, they did a remix of the first Quivver single on AM/PM, and we got in touch through that, and they said, "Oh, we're working on some stuff at a studio near where I'm from," because we all grew up in and around Coventry, so they were working on this track, and they said, "Do you want to come in the studio and see if you can chip in some ideas?" And it worked out, so we decided to release it as Tilt and sent it to Perfecto, and they picked that up just about the same time as they picked up Believe in Me.
Awesome. How'd you go to trance or progressive trance, I guess, from jungle?
I know I just started going out to different clubs and listening, because when we first started going out, you would literally hear Sasha, Carl Cox, Fabio, Groove Rider, all on the same night. So in the same room. So there was no kind of, there wasn't like a big division between the genres and the people that wanted to listen to it. It was kind of, you could hear them all in the same place on the same night. So, and then the scene started kind of getting a bit more divided.
You guys really blow up in that industry. It was late 90s, and it was so...
Yeah, it was exciting times.
Yeah.
It really was, and there was like, big labels getting remixes for major artists, so they were sending me and Tilt, remixes for people like Simply Red and Led Zeppelin and Kylie and pop artists and big major label stuff. And the whole scene was just exploding. So it was a really exciting time for like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And then the internet came along and fucking ruined it.
Yeah. Did you feel like at that time, like you knew what you were in, or?
Well, at the time we were just, we were all kind of excited to be doing what we were doing, and everything was going really well. And then we had no idea that everything was going to kind of, the whole scene and the whole music industry was going to collapse in a few years.
Yeah. Yeah, but you kept going.
We managed to hang
yeah.
Nails.
Well, I love it. It's such, I don't know, I feel like it's a testament now, like being out in Denver and all these people who just, it's this older crowd that you could tell had all related to this era that had made such an impact. Like the music at that time just, I don't know, it was just so unique and so special.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It was people, maybe it's because there wasn't so many people making music. So, and there was a much bigger kind of vetting process for every label had an A&R person that, they only released one track every couple of weeks or whatever. And there was only so many labels. So it wasn't like, there wasn't 10,000 fucking labels like there is now.
At least I think that's
got their own label.
Yeah.
So there's no, there's no sort of there's no filter for what's good and bad, and there's just everything just gets thrown out there together. So you've got to. It's down to the listener to weed out all the crap, if you will.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's
people just tried harder. You had to spend a lot more time, coming up with hopefully an original concept for your track before you even went in the studio.
Do you feel like originality is something that's missing in today's music? Or
I think there's just so many genres now that it's kind of every genre's got its own formula. It's like there's just certain drum sounds, certain kind of production techniques that that people use. It's just like music by numbers in a lot of ways. You can define the genres by the in drum sound or the bass lines that people use.
Yeah, are the same vocals that everyone uses.
Yeah, it's just people don't have to try so hard these days. Just track out there that will get played but won't last more than a couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you keep your music fresh?
Don't I?
You what? No, like everybody, No, I think everybody who's been in it for a while understands, and I feel like you have all the right to feel that way because you've been producing such quality where it's like this timeless music, and then we've had this era. I mean, I keep feeling like, and maybe I'm just being optimistic, but that it's coming back, that maybe we've gone so far,
Yeah, let's hope so.
Well, I'll just stay the optimistic one.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to go backwards here. So after Tilt, then you went off on your own? Did you just decide to be solo?
We were doing Tilt at the same time that I was doing Quivver. I had to kind of do less Quivver stuff because we got so many Tilt remix offers, and Mick and Mick, Parks and Wilson were always on my case. Let's go in the studio, let's do this mix and let's do that mix. So Quivver kind of got pushed to the side for a couple of years, really. I think that's what led to me leaving Tilt in the end, because I wanted to do more of my own stuff. But we did a string of remixes, and I was trying to do Quivver stuff as well as. And I can't even remember when I left Tilt. It was probably around 2000, I guess. But they carried on. They got together with Andy Moore and carried on doing Tilt anyway.
And then your Space Manoeuvres, was that?
Yeah. And then I did some Space Manoeuvres was just a really random thing that I just had a few samples that sounded like space music and put them on one track. And it was a really random thing. It just didn't sound like a Quivver track, so I thought I'd put it out under a different name, and then it ended up going in it was about number 24 in the national charts, which was something that no Quivver release had ever done.
In deep space, abandoned. Any crew? Negative.
And then Stoneproof, was that at the same time, or was that just a little after, I guess?
Yeah, the Stoneproof thing was like, because I've always wanted to, I've always written songs and done little bits of vocals on tracks, and I always wanted to do what I considered to be a proper album. So that's what Stoneproof was going to be, but I don't know. We went from one label to another, and then finally the album was almost done, and the label we were signed to lost their funding from the major that they were attached to, and it all kind of just took a back seat after that. The whole project just got put on hold. So I went back to it years later after all the internet thing had been.
The internet thing. Is that like when you started Boz, was that so that you could start putting your stuff and not deal with
around 2001? But that was when vinyl was still around.
Yeah.
The first few years of Boz was, vinyl sales was still pretty good at that point.
Yeah. Have a couple of those.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh yeah, of course. It's fun to see some things that you were a part of. Like you were a part of Graham and Blades, of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, funky Summa.
Love that track. I wish I still had that track. I'd love to remix that, but I haven't got any of the old parts.
Oh my gosh, that would be awesome.
It's a favourite of mine. Yeah, I wish I'd got the part.
Yeah, it's so great. So you've worked with, while you were still doing Quivver, still working with lots of amazing other producers, while you're still going solo and enjoying that, and then just choosing who you wanted to work with on your free time? Yeah,
things just kind of happened just randomly, really. Like I ended up doing a track with Michael Thomas. A friend introduced me to Michael, and I was in New York for a few days, so he's like, why don't you come over to my place and we'll get something done. So we did a couple of days at his studio, and then he carried on and finished the track. And yeah, just things kind of happened by chance a lot of the time.
In that era, like after vinyl crashed and then you're like, well, the internet kind of ruined everything, did you lose any of your motivation to keep at it?
It's difficult when it's the only thing that you're good at.
I doubt that, but yeah.
You can't afford to lose your motivation, really, because I can't do anything else. So I just had to hang on and hope things would improve.
Yeah, but not with as much passion.
No, I'm still as passionate about music as I ever was, and still as kind of, I don't know, I'm still as excited to go into the studio every day as I've always been, but it is a bit soul destroying when you look at the difference in record sales and the way that the industry's kind of, the music industry generally has just been decimated over the last sort of 10 years.
What about DJing? Like, do you still feel, I guess, the way things are now, where like everyone's a DJ? Is that part of it?
Everyone's a DJ, everyone's a producer, and yeah, but I still enjoy DJing as well. It's still a buzz. It's still fun. I love traveling. It's nice to be in Chicago for a few days.
You're based in LA now.
I moved back to the UK in November last year. I was in LA for nearly 10 years, but yeah, we just moved back to England.
Yeah, how's that change? Good?
It's been good, yeah. It was good in LA, you know, it was a good 10 years, but it's really good to be back home.
So then did you move to LA? You were doing some like music production for movies and TV?
Yeah, I worked on a few bits of films. I never scored a whole film or anything as grand as that, but I worked on Pelham 1, 2, 3, and I worked on Shrek 3, and I worked on a film called 12, and I also worked on a film called American Ultra last year.
Oh, nice.
I did 6 minutes all by myself.
So what's your studio like? I'd actually love to hear, you were talking about a little bit earlier what your studio used to be like, and then what your studio is like now.
Well, actually, the studio got bigger and bigger and better and cooler looking until about 2005. And then, you know, technology had improved so much by then that the studio started to shrink. There wasn't as much need for all the gear that I had. So when I moved to the States, I took probably a quarter of my studio, and it was enough to work on. And you know, all the other gear that I'd accumulated over the years is still gathering dust in the UK.
You still have it though?
Yeah, I've still got it. I keep talking about, you know, rigging up some of the old machines and going back to the old school method of working, but it's just too convenient to do the way things are now.
Oh, yeah. So you gotta find some of those old tracks and then remix them with the old equipment. So how about vocals? When did you start? Because you have an amazing voice, and I always love. I'm just gonna say I always love your vocals on tracks. It's like the perfect male vocal, which I'm always a sucker for, like male vocals on progressive, and it's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I've always kind of. I was in a little band at school and stuff like that, and we were kind of a local band and did some gigs, but it was kind of a indie rock thing. And that kind of stopped when I started going out to raves when I was 18. But it was convenient to be able to write and sing my own songs rather than having to try and find a vocalist that I liked and work with. So after, what was it, Twist and Shout, you know, I tried a vocal on Twist and Shout, and that kind of sounded okay, and then I did Believe in Me, and that sort of sounded all right. So I just kind of, every now and again, I would try and do a vocal on something and just see how it worked.
Yeah, out of convenience. It's so good. It's so good.
Wow.
Whatever.
I just did something recently with an Australian vocalist called Shane Blackshaw.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a wicked voice. That turned out really well. That's coming out on Stripped, I think, in June.
Nice. What else are you working on? What else is in the wings?
I've done a string of remixes since Christmas. I've done about 7 remixes. Yeah. There's one just come out, which was Paralyzed by Rag and Bones, which came out on Mango Alley. That just went into the prog chart today, actually, on Beatport. And then I did a collaboration with Funk the Void, that's coming out on Sador in a few weeks. And what else? There's a remix I did for Eclectish. I'm not sure when that one's coming out, but yeah. And then there was one on Baroque that came out about a month ago. So yeah, I've been busy doing remixes this year. I need to get back to doing some original stuff, actually. There's a lot of half-finished tracks lying around that I need to go back to.
What's your schedule like then for the studio? Do you plan it out, or is it when the mood hits you?
No, I'm in the studio pretty much every day.
Nice.
Doing one thing or another. Whether it's trying to write a song or start a new Quivver track, or working on stuff for like trailer music and stuff like that, because I do kind of instrumental bits and bobs for TV and film stuff, just experimental stuff, and send it to my friends who do music supervision for TV and film. So when I've got free time and I don't feel like doing house music, I'll do something that's more aimed at kind of TV and trailer world.
Yeah, that's nice to have something to...
It makes a nice change. Yeah.
So was the last then you put out, that was yours, was it the This Was and Mumbo Jumbo? Your last?
Yeah.
That
was
which totally went up. I was so excited on the progressive chart. So speaking back of the progressive charts.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see actual good progressive music coming back. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be a progressive comeback, but it'd be nice. After the music press completely destroyed prog, and then I think it didn't help that Beatport, didn't really do justice to the genre either. There's a lot of music lumped in as progressive, which most progressive producers didn't really consider progressive. And now they've sorted out the genres. Hopefully that'll kind of take away the stigma of prog, because it kind of became a dirty word for a few years, and it was like everyone hated being associated with it, me included.
Right, and now everyone's getting brave to come back out and be like, this is progressive.
Yeah, hopefully that will continue, A lot of labels didn't want to be, they wanted to say no, this is techno, and you listen to techno labels these days, and they're making more melodic stuff that sounds just like prog and calling it techno.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
What would you say then? Like, it was real progressive?
I would say, for me, late 90s Yeah, to early 2000s, very early 2000s. Hopefully it'll be like 2020 will be the biggest year ever.
I love that. Let's have
Slowly coming back from revival.
Well, shoot, I know you have to go get dinner, but I just want a couple more, maybe like a favorite story from the early days, the golden era.
Oh no, I hate this question. What's the weirdest thing that's ever happened?
Either way, weird, fun, memorable.
Honestly, I don't know. I can't answer that one at the moment.
All right.
I can't think of a weird enough story off the top of my head.
Or how about something where you felt like somewhere you were at, you're like, this is it?
I don't know. I always say the best gig possibly, or the gig that I felt the most excited to play was probably Cream at Amnesia in about maybe 99 or 2000 in Ibiza. So that like as far as gigs being, and also the Twilo residency that I did, but that particular night in Amnesia, it was me and Dave C. Cream night, and it was amazing. There was about 10 of my friends were actually in Ibiza at the time as well, so we just had the most fun weekend.
What about now? Do you feel like it's possible to get that kind of energy back again? Do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a favorite place to?
It'd be nice to think so. I mean, like it's weird the way the scenes blew up so much in the US like the last few years, but it's kind of blown up in genres that I'm not really
good.
No, the genres that I'm not particularly fond of, and I've got no association with. So I keep hoping that all these kids who've got into the big EDM sound will eventually trickle down and become prog heads.
Yeah. It's weird because there are those. It makes me laugh. Those festivals that are like EDM festivals, and then they put like the prog on like the side as like a little sideshow.
Yeah, and there's like 10 people on the dance floor.
I don't need to drown myself. I can wait until tomorrow.
Yeah, you too. Thanks. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
See ya.